small village in eastern part of Kenya. I'm here to visit my family as well as to check out this school. This is a project we started a few years ago, constructing classrooms for kids here in the village. There are about 200 kids in this school. And as you can see, the school is not complete. So I'm trying to mobilize my friends so that we can finish it. We want all the classrooms to look like this one. This one is already complete. And so as you can see, there are gaping holes, there are no windows, there are no doors. So parents have already tried hard. They've constructed these 2 classrooms that I'm showing now, but they need support to complete by fixing windows and doors and plastering it so that the classrooms can be complete like this one. It's a worthwhile project, as I said, serving 200 kids in the village. So I'm appealing to you, my friends, if you can support this project, we'll be truly grateful. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing. I just want to correct one small fact there. The school has 420 kids. I checked that again with my dad. And so it's serving 400 kids, and that's a lot in the village. So thank you so much. So as I said, it started with just 1 classroom. And when you look at how much as the expansion that the community has done, and of course now with the support of IPM, it's incredible. And the spirit of community support was introduced in Kenya many years ago with a system we used to call a rambi. When there was a need in the community, or when there's a need in the community, people come together, they give us support, they give little income that they have, they share to address whatever problem there is. And so I'm happy to see IPM continuing with that spirit of community togetherness and the support that people just come together to support these projects. And right now, as I said, the school is complete, but we still need 1 last classroom. We have, as you can see from the PowerPoint, we have 7 classrooms finished. It's supposed to go up to class 8. The class 8 right now, students, they have a makeshift sort of a classroom where they study outside under a tree, and we need to build for them a classroom so that we can complete the school. Also, we are thinking of building a small library for them so that they have access to books. Most of these books are expensive, and as I said, the families there don't have a lot of income, and so they would be grateful if we can set up a small library and equip it with textbooks so that the kids can study and pass their exams. And also another issue there is water. There is a big problem in the village of water. There is no supply by the government, so there are little streams across the village. And so the best solution when families can afford is to buy water tanks so that they can collect rainwater when it rains. And so right now at the school, kids don't have water. They run to the streams, they bring their own water from the stream in little bottles, and that water is not clean, it's not treated. And so we are thinking of getting them a water tank so that they can have water from, rainwater, and they can have it treated within the school so that they can have clean water. Waterborne diseases are very common in the village. So these are some of the expansion projects for the future to make sure that the kids have good education, they have clean water, have access to books once we construct the library. But so far it's progressing so well. There's so much progress since we showed the video, and we are so happy, and the parents are extremely grateful. I have to really, on their behalf, express all our gratitude for the support we got after showing the video and the continued support from IPM of not just this project, but other projects in the village. IPM has a water project there. You know, you have another school that you are supporting in the village. So all this support and generosity of IPM is highly appreciated by all the people in the village. Last time we had an informal conversation and you were asking me, how are the kids now surviving during COVID? And, you know, I had to ring my dad and ask that question because I'm in touch with my siblings and they're in Nairobi and their kids, you know, schools are closed, but the kids have access to online lessons. They're getting lessons online. One of my nieces, they're teaching through Zoom, which is amazing technology in Kenya. But then the kids in the village, they have no access to these online or TV educational programs. It's a concern, but it is what it is. So I asked my dad, what can we do? Can we sort of organize volunteers to come and teach them informally, you know, keep them busy, keep them going with their education program? But he said, no, you know, they are not supposed to congregate. They're supposed to be home, social distancing, and so we don't know how they're going to recover and catch up with their programs. But I did ask that question. I was told there's a plan to bring back the kids who are preparing for exams this year. So hopefully they will be going back to school. I'm sure they're all anxious to go back and prepare for exams, and that would be great. We don't have cases of COVID in the village, thank God. And but of course, there's a lot of awareness through government officials, a lot of announcements. They're very strict with all the precautions that everybody is taking around the world. And so we are happy that nobody is affected in the village, but we are concerned that, you know, the kids are idling around. They don't have access to TV broadcasts. They don't have access to internet, and we're just hoping that they'll go back to school soon and enjoy the new classrooms and continue with their education. Yeah.
Maybe I can help or just jump in to give you a little more background in some of the areas that Terry has referenced. The first, and you know, this is from memory, so it may not be anywhere near perfect, but the first support or the first partnership that IPM developed with the village and the community was a water project that she mentioned when we traveled there with the Holy Cross delegation. I'm guessing 2004 with the late Kim McElhaney, who was the chaplain there and a mentor and dear friend of mine who has since passed. But Kim and her spouse Tim actually came with the students and I there, and we noticed that women were having you know, to wade into what could only be described as a swamp to gather water. And of course, there was all kind of parasites in the water, bugs that were biting them. The kids were there. It was a really, you know, difficult situation. So Holy Cross immediately went back and made a small, and I mean, not small, $250, $500 donation, I think it was, to build 2 artisan wells to basically retain the water. And that, you know, made a wonderful impact. And then working with Terry's father, he was trying to buy the infrastructure to pipe the homes in the villages. And again, we're talking about hundreds of families to provide water directly in their homes. And so that was something we worked on. And then Susan Mutuku, who many of you have met, who was a dear friend of Terry's mom and is a retired teacher herself, and whose story is highlighted in our book, 40 Stories for 40 Years, that Sarah Govan and I edited for the 40th anniversary General Assembly, has a highlight of Susan's personal story and the work that she did in creating a women's cooperative to make sisal bags to sell at the local marketplace. And in getting to know that cooperative, we met them at the Catholic parish down the hill from Terry's house. When I say parish, we're talking a little brick chapel, basically, very artisan chapel, if you will. And there was the kids from the community, the preschool kids were meeting in, what you would call the, not the sanctuary, help me out, Clint, the area behind the altar, where the priest changes. I should know this as an altar boy, but I can't former altar boy.
I'm not Catholic, so I don't know. Sacristy, no.
The sacristy. There you go.
Yeah.
Sacristy. The kids were meeting in the sacristy, and so the Reichert family, our former board chair Libby Reichert, long before she was chair, her family made, I think it was a $10,000 gift to build a separate building there, and a water tank and such for the school there. And if you Google the project or look at the project on our website, you'll see the beautiful kind of picture drawing, educational, very Freudian, as we talked about a couple weeks ago, way of educating women and kids that was taking place in that school building. And then, because that was successful, then Terry being Terry and her father being her father, they hit on this idea of this Mary Goretti primary school up the hill. And I just, I'm in awe. I can think of few project partners around the world where the community itself has put so much sweat equity, as we call it in the US, into the work. We've been making these sort of smaller donations over the years, and what they've been able to do in making their own bricks, providing the proper infrastructure, is just extraordinary. And we're probably looking at installing a couple of new wells now. I think at one point we were involved with latrines for the schools, which are really important. There's some other needs for the girls. Maybe, I don't know if Terry wants to speak, you might have seen highlighted online the rise in teen pregnancy throughout Kenya. But there was an article that particularly highlighted in this region as girls are home from school and out in the village with young boys, and sort of the natural happens. And that's been a real issue, and will continue to be an issue now for a generation or more of babies having babies. And it's a really difficult, it's a difficult place in a number of levels, really arid and quite poor, but also strikingly beautiful. And the Kamba people, if you know anything about Kenyan history, have always been a really strong community, and a very socially connected and committed community. And I probably shouldn't say this on Facebook Live, but they have some really exciting new political leaders as well that are gaining a national reputation that I think bodes well for for the future. Maybe Terry will go back and run for senator someday. We'll see.
Yeah. You wish. Just to mention, now that you mentioned political, I just want to highlight that the beautiful classroom you saw there, that building was constructed by the government for the teachers. So, it's one classroom, it's one building, but we appreciate that the government is also doing something there. I just wish they could do more for the kids, but we appreciate whatever support we get from the government as well. And that beautiful building is the staff room, and we wish we could have constructed the other classrooms just like that one, but that's expensive. The materials were bought, that one, yes. So that's the staff room, which was supported by the government. It's a bit more expensive for the local community, but the community has done amazing constructing all those classrooms with local materials. I also want to mention that recently my dad approached the local government, and they brought in a tractor to level the ground. So now the kids have at least a playground. So that's another progress. And so you can see people, government, IPM, the Capuchin Friars in Denver, my friends, we are all coming together to see how we can support this community. And I tell you, that little video I did, it was just random, but I'm so grateful to see the support that we are getting, thanks to the video, thanks to social media, thanks to communications. Joe.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can open it up now. We have quite a few people on Facebook Live and here on Zoom. Would anyone like to ask Terry a question at this point? And I'm monitoring the Facebook feed. There's some comments there, but you can either ask the question by unmuting yourself or putting it in the chat function on Zoom, whatever is easier for you. And we have a bit of time left, so let's open it up for conversation.
Sure. Ilsa, she did mention she's been to the village. How was your experience there, Ilsa? Is she there with us?
Yeah, she's there. Ilsa, did you hear the question?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself.
Yeah.
That experience was one of the most memorable times of my life, frankly. There were so many aspects of my travel to the beautiful country of Kenya, and particularly time spent at Kandula. You know, there was such an obvious sense of community, which translated to a sense of family. There was genuine appreciation and value for education. I think so much more so than sometimes in our own country. And just to see the commitment and effort that is put into providing access to education for children in Kenya is just wonderful and very inspiring to me. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, I mean, it was remarkable, the commitment of, you know, Susan Mutuku, who I met at the time, and we met with the women of the project that did the sisal baskets. It was truly an amazing time spent.
Thank you, Elsa. I just want to emphasize that sense of community. Mary Goretti, by the way, is the name of my mom that the school is dedicated to. And my mom was a community mobilizer. She was coordinating a lot of social community development projects. And so I grew up watching her and observing her. And perhaps that's why I'm still active in the community projects. And we would wake up weekends with a lot of people outside our house, and women especially. And I would sit with them, I would listen, and they would be discussing projects or their kids or problems in the village. And they would together come up with solutions. And, you know, they would be talking about something in Kenya we call merry-go-round, where people come together, they raise funds, they share those funds, they purchase like water tanks for their families, or they raise funds to support a sick kid in the village, or to pay school fees for the kids. And so that continues, and that is one of the most fascinating spirits or values that I learned from my mom growing up. There were always people, women, villagers coming together at home, sitting with her, she coordinating, them sharing their problems, and kids running around. And that's the spirit that Elsa is emphasizing. That's how we live there. That's how families live there. Each problem is a community problem, and people come together to solve and sort out all these problems. Like this school, people sit together, parents, and say, what do? We have local materials. Let's organize ourselves to build, to burn the bricks. Let's look for people in the village to do the construction. And so it's the spirit of community and addressing problems together that continues there. And I know as a visitor, I'm glad you mentioned that. And I grew up watching my mom, you know, and my dad, you know, actively participating and mobilizing the community there. So thanks for sharing that, Elsa.
Sure, Terry, one more thing that has always really remained very vivid in my memory when I was walking there among the children, we were just walking with the other participants from the immersion, and a little child would walk up to you and just take your hand. And that times, and that's what I mean. I mean, that sense of love and family and community and friendship. It was just so vivid and stays vivid in my memory. It's beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's a very important aspect of our life in that community and in Kenya in general. Families and villagers just come together, and that's the lifestyle, and that's what we know. And so giving back to the community, for me, it's one of the most satisfying things I ever do in my life. And thanks to the support of IPM and other friends for that. And I just wanted to mention, now that you talked about visits, my father, I was speaking with him, and he said he's always welcoming IPM visitors and whoever wants to go there and support the project. And we are hoping to expand this project and open up some sort of our homes where we can have exchange immersion projects, experiences where we can have visitors perhaps from other countries coming and living with us in that small village, interacting with the kids, interacting with the villagers, experiencing that community life that we just discussed, Elsa. And so my father was like, yes, they're welcome anytime. Joe, you know, you've taken groups there. But now we are thinking of longer periods, not just going for a few hours, just somebody going there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks to teach, help teach at the school, etc. So we are opening up that. We are, as a family, we are welcoming, we are hoping to welcome anybody who wants to go and experience the community life there. So that's an announcement that we have of my dad.
Yeah, well, you can thank your dad. I can say those of you who know what Githeri is, you get the best Githeri in Kenya in their home. So really, Jared and I always look forward to a little Githeri when we go to Kandula. And
now he said you have to stay longer. He doesn't want visitors coming and leaving the same day.
And if the sun is right or the sky is right, you can see Kilimanjaro, which is
yes, yeah, it's a beautiful place. Yeah,
it is. We just so you all know, we did have 3 additional immersions planned for Kenya between what would have been May of this year and next June. They've all been sort of put on hold, but we're hopeful that both the students from Inspiring Minds, which is a wonderful community program coordinated by a buddy of mine, Derek Tolles, in Warren, Ohio, will be bringing some scholarship students next summer if all goes well. Awesome. And also John and Lori Cunningham and some other donors and friends are committed to going. And we also hope to have a Yale group or an affiliated group going back to Kenya as well in the near future. So just to let folks know about that. There are a couple of comments. Jim Kamphafner is just reminding us how much this, thanking Terry for being here and reminding us of how much this conversation brings back memories from his family's trip there 6 years ago, which is hard to believe. There are people watching, including Candelaria, a partner and a brilliant musician in El Salvador, who many of you have benefited from hearing her music over the years at the Romero commemorations and other events. So welcome, Candelaria. We do have a couple of questions on the Zoom feed. Carol Finling in Chicago, Terry, is asking, is there a way to get, this is a good typical Carol question, a way to get books for the library. And then she's making the comment that those of us in the US could learn lessons on cooperation, community, family, and values from what she's heard from you today. So the question, I guess, is related to the best way to get books to the library at the school, which is, as you know, has been a challenge for us in other parts of the world, including Kajiado, where IPM helped source a library at the Bride Rescue Program school there. But what's your perspective on that, Terry? Sending books, buying books in country, what's the best way to address that?
First off, we are wondering what kind of books do we want to have these kids access to. And I had a discussion with my dad, and he did consult the parents and teachers at the school, and they said that the most important books or urgent books that are needed are textbooks for kids who are preparing for exams. And so those can be purchased locally. They are very cheap. So it would be a way of boosting, supporting local businesses. We want to do that. But also they said we want to welcome anybody visiting, if we can get books from other countries so that kids can get to learn, you know, about other countries, geography or history or whatever, that would be awesome. Or stories about, you know, kids' stories. Those books are welcome, but the priority right now is textbooks for, especially for the kids who are preparing for exams. And those are purchased.
Would those textbooks be purchased in country? In Nairobi?
Yes, not even in the country. We would prefer that they are purchased in that small market so that we can promote the local business. That's the idea.
Just if any of you are confused, and Terry can correct me on my geography, but we used to refer to this project being near Machakos. The Machakos town is sort of the nearest large town, and over the last 20 years, it's almost become part of Nairobi. I mean, there's pretty much sprawl all the way to Machakos now. But when Kenya created the new government structure with the governors, there's actually, the governor is not the Machakos governor, correct, Terry?
Yeah, it's been, now it's Mbooni.
Mbooni.
And in that small village, we have the market up there on the hill, Joe, the local small town. And there are several bookshops. And so they get the books from Nairobi. And I believe it's best to support those business people in that village, in that small town.
So that's the same village that Jared and I went to purchase the building?
Exactly, where you purchase the materials, yeah. There are various bookshops there where the books can be bought.
Just to give you a sense of how savvy Terry's father is, and
you hear that.
Well, you can tell him I said it, rather than us, you know, which we never like to do anyways, sort of handing out money in the community, or sending a donation. He went with us to the local hardware store is the only way to describe it. There are pictures online. It's not an Ace or let alone a Home Depot, if you're familiar with those in the US. Literally, we had a list, and there might have even been a photo of a list in this slideshow of what he thought needed to be purchased and what the prices were. And so my colleague Jared, who many of you have met over the years, and I went with Terry's dad and sort of negotiated our way through purchasing all that stuff and then having it available directly for the community, so that the community was receiving the building goods or the equipment, and then they were providing the sweat equity for the actual building itself. So it is a remarkable little town that prior to the installation of kind of a new road was less accessible. So it's really good to hear. Any other questions? Any of you that are on Zoom that have voice, please feel free to ask. Unmute yourself and ask one if you'd like.
Or probably if they've been to the village to share their experience too, I would love to hear.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at who's online. I mean, I think, geez, Larry, Margie, Alyssa's been there.
Sarah is anxious to go. Hopefully she can go next summer.
Right. Yeah, my parents have been there, but they're supposed to be on. Trying to think who else. Ilsa's obviously been there. We've probably brought, I'd say conservatively, probably 250, 300, maybe 400 people there over the last 15 to 20 years. So lots of folks have seen it.
Yeah.
Larry,
my question, Joe, my question, what are the most projects in terms of priority? Would it be the school, the library, other buildings, the children, what?
Yeah, I think just before I turn over to Terry, Sarah's there's a couple of ideas on the slide that I think Terry can see as well, but I'm not sure, you know, obviously she would know better than anyone what the priorities would be for the community.
Yes.
Terry?
Okay,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
fine. That's very good. That's good thinking, and obviously will help us determine how we use our volunteer gifts. Congratulations on your progress. It's great.
Thank you so much. If you could go back to that slide you had before, Sarah, the one before that, so that I can walk you through. So the first priority right now is to finalize or complete the classrooms. There's one more left. As I said, the class 8 is not built yet. And so the students, you know, they learn from outside. And when it's cold, you can imagine they have a makeshift classroom of papers, or I don't know how they do it. So it would be essential to build, that one has to be built from scratch. They haven't built that. And then we will have completed all the classrooms. And then after that, I think it's important to start supporting the library. If we can provide textbooks as they requested, and in fact, they are willing to share. My dad was saying, the parents were saying, even if for students share one textbook, that would be awesome, to be a big support to them. So for me, the completing the classrooms and providing textbooks is the top priority right now.
Great.
They just
Or
completed.
how much would it cost for a classroom?
The one that's not, we have to start from scratch. It's about 400,000 Kenyan shillings. How much is that, Joe? In $100 equals,
Yeah,
1 shilling is $100. So
I was going to say the shilling has lost so much value. I always want to make it 80, but it's probably, you know, historically it would have been $5,000 to $10,000. You know,
Yeah.
normally now it's, I mean, with the exchange rate, it's probably more in the, I'm just round figures in the 4 to maybe even 3.5, 4, 6, you know, $4,000 to $6,000 if we talk about not just the classroom but the desks and the chalkboard
Right.
and, you know,
the
everything
paint
related
and stuff, yeah.
But the good news about the shilling not being as worth as much to the dollar, at least for donors based in the United
Right.
States, is that, you know, a little bit of money can go a long way. So as you could see there, I think it's like 106 shillings now, but even if we say 100, that's $4,000.
Yeah.
approximately.
That's
Yeah, I
very
mean,
helpful. Having, my roommate was a librarian for 30 years and taught Japanese and
Oh,
Spanish.
wow.
So we're very interested in the library aspect too.
Fantastic. Oh, thank you so much. So that will be the next project, the expansion project.
Thank you.
Yeah. The other thing that would be a priority, I would say, for IPM, at least based on our experience, is the renovation and probably, frankly, the complete rebuild of the wells that the Holy Cross students donated all those years ago, if needed. And Terry was
Yes,
going to
it's
check
needed, Joe. Don't say if, it's needed.
Well, I'm
for
assuming
sure.
it is, but it's your job to tell me, not mine to tell you. So
Oh, yes, it's needed. And especially, I did mention that at the school, the kids would be very happy if they can get the plastic water tank. The teachers have, can you imagine, the government has provided for the teachers, but the kids have no access to that water. So when it rains, you know, they have water throughout the season. So I did discuss that, and the parents, of course, they said that that's another priority. That would be great if they can have a plastic water tank, so that they have rainwater collected and they can have water throughout the season.
yeah, and I think I mean that would clearly be a priority. Holy
Yes.
Cross in the you know, in the current reality of us not being able to travel. Holy Cross used to go before Kim passed every year to Kenya. They haven't been able to afford to do that, you know, for quite some time. So they've been going to Colombia and El Salvador instead, and before that Nicaragua. But they are going to be doing virtual programming with us this coming year. So we'll probably do a virtual immersion with them focused on either gender equity more thematically or on Kenya itself. Marty Kelly and I were talking about that the other day. So I know Vicky's on the call. That's something that we can work on developing. And if you could get you know, if you have a sense or your father has a sense, Terry, of what those, you know, the redoing the wells or putting in new wells would cost, I think there'd be real interest in making that happen as part of the school's commitment. It is my alma mater, so I feel like I can speak for them a little bit.
Okay, great.
Let's see. There's also, Carol has pointed out that she remembers the children at the school in Zaragoza in El Salvador that she visited some time ago. Sort of a similar kind of thing, and the way that the community came together to share resources there, particularly the involvement of the parents or the madres de familia, which are padres, but they're really madres, the mothers primarily, and how they support the community. She's commenting, I think those of you online can see that this is IPM at its finest, but then asking, would it help to list projects and cost to IPM, because donors may like having a personal impact, which of course we know from our history that many times people want to be able to pick a particular aspect of what's happening. As all of, you know, many of you on the call know, IPM has transitioned more towards a model of giving unrestricted dollars and allowing our partners to determine what they think, and our regional staff, what they think are the priorities. And Adela is the International Director of Programs and Partnerships, has just put together a wonderful document outlining some of that in relation to Latin America, at least. And we talked with Mahesh about that yesterday. But, you know, if there is some specificity, Terry, and any other project partners who are on this call, and I know some are, you know, being able to say $100 US, $500 US, $1,000 US, $10,000 US will make this possible is always helpful. Sarah's making a great example right there. So, I think that's $201, you know, 246,000 Kenyan shillings, which again, my math fails me. That's something like, what would that be?
I just added on those two pictures based on the request, but that gives you the list and the idea.
Well, I went to Holy Cross because I didn't have to do math or science, so I'm not the one to, let's say, 640 divided by 100. Yeah,
no problem. I think that's something we can work on.
I do have the general.
Yeah, it's about 2,500 US was just the supplies we bought, you know, during the last, with the trip with the Yale delegation. And that made a huge difference. But that was just for the supplies alone.
I think it's a good question. It's a good suggestion. Joe and the team, we can sit down and I can get quotes from back in the village. And then we can just post the various items that are needed or projects that are coming up. Then people can pick up whatever they think they can afford. So yes, it's possible. I think we could do that. Joe?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Adela's on the call, and I don't want to put her on the spot, but this is her, you know, she's responsible for this aspect of IPM's work. I just wonder if she has any input, or Alyssa and Mahesh, who obviously have extensive experience working with us over the years directly with our project partners, both in India and around the world, in Mahesh and Alyssa's case.
Well, while we're waiting for them, I just looked, and the 400,000 shillings is approximately $3,760 US. So a $4,000, $5,000 donation could really go far to getting us to that next step. Yay!
Fantastic.
Translation, and, you know, calculators. So that's at least as of today, the currency exchange.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah,
great. Thanks for checking that.
Yeah, approximate to the penny. But we, you know, we do want to be aware of currency fluctuations. So, you know, just because the Kenyan shilling is not strong at the moment may not mean that it'll always be that way. So it's sort of, this is the CEO and me, or the fundraiser and me, saying it's always kind of good to round up because we never know what the exchange rate's going to be. And we also have to account for, you know, transferring the money and if the money is exchanged in country, there's always a fee associated with that. So, anything else? Adela, Alyssa, Mahesh, any thoughts you'd like to add for this conversation? Mahesh said he's not able to use the audio because of bandwidth issues, but we're obviously happy that he's able to be with us, and we're thrilled to have him and Hemant present last week. Anyone else have any other thoughts? We could probably entertain one question if anyone has one. Just checking one more time.
How are you working with the, can you give another example of, in the slides and the other things, the community members have shown amazing investment and collecting materials for the school. Are they using their own funds? Are they going out and collecting materials and making the bricks themselves? Could you maybe highlight a little bit more about the teamwork making the dream work?
The community, as I mentioned, they are trying to use local materials that are required. For example, the bricks, they just get the local soil from the school, and then they burn the bricks, they prepare them locally. So most of what they are contributing is labor and the local materials, collecting stones that are required for the flooring, water from the stream that's required for the construction. So it's not more of funds because they don't have a lot of funds. They don't have a lot of money to share, but they have the spirit and they have the local materials and they are willing to contribute with local labor.
So I think that makes any financial investment from donors, IPM, even more powerful because it's met with that level of passion and personal investment by everyone in the village.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
That's a good question. Thank you.
Yeah, that's I think part of what Carol was alluding to earlier, and Larry, that kind of, if you will, match commitment from the partners themselves is really at the heart of what we do. I've known Terry for a long time, and I always sort of have to say to her, don't thank IPM so much. This is why we're here.
I will never stop doing that.
That's not
so grateful. You have no idea.
Yeah, well, it's not necessary, and it's really our honor and our privilege to be able to partner with communities like this. And we all, as our founder Jim Mayer said, we learn so much more in our relationship with one another than we can ever hope to give from our abundance. So really glad.
Thank you, Joe. And as I said, my family, you are always open. The entire community is always happy to welcome IPM and all the visitors you bring around. And we are so grateful once again for the support. So thanks again. And after this, I'm going to call my dad and share, this good news, and so that he can pass it along to the villagers, to the parents and the kids. And so it's a lot of excitement there. And I'm just so happy to see the progress so far. Thank you.
Well, Salamia Baba. And
I will.
Hi everyone. Good morning. I'm sorry, I don't know why I couldn't unmute myself, so I had to get out of the call and then come back. But hi Terry. I didn't have like a question, but I just had a comment, and I just wanted to say that I'm really impressed with all the progress that you have become. I'm pretty sure it's not only the work of international organizations or local organizations, but the effort of the family and the vision in the mind and in the heart of you, your family, and the community too. And so I am really happy that IPM has partnered with a project that is making so much change in that community. And I think any effort around education, it's development, not only in the present, but also in the future.
Thank you so much, Adela. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Terry, for all your hard work. So I'm really looking forward to continue learning from you and to see what else is coming in the future for this project.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. So always look out on what we are sharing on IPM website, I guess, and Facebook. I'm gonna be passing on anything and every progress to the team and everybody. Thank you, everybody on the IPM team. We really much appreciate.
Oh,
Thank you to you and your family and the entire village. It's beautiful to be and powerful to be working with all of you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Terry, for that wonderful presentation and conversation. Thank you, Sarah, for all your help, and Ilsa with getting ready for today's call and preparing that PowerPoint. And Adela, you will get to Kenya. She was scheduled to be there this summer with the list, but obviously that's not happening. But maybe next year.
Hopefully next year.
Right.
Yeah.
We did have, just from Mahesh was just suggesting, since he doesn't have voice, to maybe looking at alternative technologies like solar and the impact they could have in the water purification, providing electricity for the community, which I know is something that's expanding its use in India and throughout South Asia. I've seen some of that in Nepal as well with Mahesh. And thank you as well from Alyssa Bovell, who was inspired, she says, by seeing Kandula in person in January, and Margie also just said wonderful. She was there with her spouse and her mom and Larry quite a few years ago now. So thank you again, Terry. I'd remind all of you that, again, at 2 o'clock today, because of a personal emergency, a health emergency, with our partners at Mujer Comunidad in San Francisco Libre in Nicaragua, Maria Felix will not be able to lead the conversation today, so Adela and I are going to have a more informal and personal, and in some ways private, conversation with our Latin American partners about their ongoing response to the COVID pandemic. You're certainly welcome to join us, but we will not be live streaming that. We'll only be on the Zoom feed to protect the confidentiality and some of the concerns that the partners have raised directly with Adela and I about current situations. You may have seen a lot of the Interfaith Task Force on Latin America have been posting news, particularly from Colombia, about how the Colombian police and particularly paramilitaries have been using the COVID pandemic and the lockdown as a way to terrorize populations that have been seen, primarily indigenous populations, as aiding and abetting the rebels there, even though the peace agreement is now firmly in place. So we're particularly concerned about what's happening in Colombia and Brazil, as Rodrigo discussed so poignantly last week when we gathered together. We are not going to have a forum next week. It is the, I even hesitate to use the word right now with the racial reckoning going on in the United States, but it is our Independence Day holiday. So on Friday, July 3rd, many of us will be protesting rather than working, and I would invite you to do the same if you're able. But we will join again for a forum. Ilsa, I'm looking at you. I believe it's on July 10th will be the next English language forum and
Yes.
Spanish language forum as well. So we hope that those of you that are celebrating in the US have a great holiday weekend next weekend. And those of you who are joining us from around the world, it's great to be with you and see you all, and may the peace that passes all understanding be with everyone this day and throughout the coming weekend. Thanks again, Terry.
Thank you, and stay safe,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.